'Twas the night before Christmas, and the Ortega family was merry in Corvina, California. But Bruce Pardo didn't care. He entered the home with a pistol blast and left it in flames with 9 bodies that passed. Many survived, which is great, but it's a terrible ending to 2008. Hello, I am Sean, and welcome to my channel. Or if you are new here, or if you're a returner, I guess welcome back. Each week I try to research and tell some true crime. I'm really excited. I'm getting close to 1,000 subscriptions, and I can't tell you how excited that makes me. I'm going to say, like all true crime subject, today's subject deals with death and killing. It could trigger some people. There is some children that get hurt in the process. I try to make it as PG as possible, but I want to tell the victims' stories too. So I just wanted you to let you know about that before I start. Now on with 2008's Covina massacre. Bruce Pardo was a bright man and was working for a jet propulsion laboratory. And in 1988, he planned to get married to a fellow employee, Delia. The date was set for June 17th, 1989. Delia waited at the church, but he never showed up. Instead, he withdrew $3,000 out of their joint account and took a trip on his own. She called off the engagement and things went back to normal, with Pardo living with his mommy. In 2001, Pardo found himself in a new situation. He had been living with his girlfriend Eleanor and their 13-month-old son Matthew. Things were going great until the day Eleanor went to the store and left the baby alone with Pardo. He was watching TV more than he was watching his child, and he never noticed that the kid fell into the pool. Eleanor came back home and found Pardo holding the barely alive child, rushed him to the hospital, and after about a week, they were told Matthew would never fully recover. He had suffered brain damage and was now a paraplegic. Pardo didn't want to have anything to do with that, so he ran away. He never saw his son again. He never paid child support, but he had no trouble claiming the child on his taxes. In 2004, he met Sylvia Ortega, a 40-year-old mother of 3, and they hit it off right away. In 2006, they got married and were a happy family, or so it seemed. Their marriage was suffering from financial stress. Then Pardo's mom, Nancy, got involved. She really liked Sylvia and hoped that she could help, but it made it all worse. She told Sylvia about her son's past relationships, and she told him about Matthew. This upset Sylvia so bad. She hated that Pardo was dishonest and was not taking responsibility for his son. In April 2008, she filed for divorce. Pardo purchased his first 9mm gun in June of that year. On June 18th, he was ordered to pay $1,785 a month for spousal support. His first check bounced, and then he stopped payment on his second check. Then he never tried again to make any payments. On July 31st, he was fired from his job for billing fake hours to get paid for. On August 8th, he purchased another gun. Then on September 8th, another gun. Then again on October 11th. So that's 4 guns so far that he's picked up. Also, he ordered himself a rental Santa suit from a neighbor, and he wanted the suit to be much larger than he was. He said he wanted it to be roomy so he could put a whole bunch of stuffing in there. He went to visit a friend of his, Steve Irwin, in Iowa. He was upset on how things had turned out, and he complained about this to Steve. He was even upset that his mother, told Sylvia about his past, but he was also ticked off at her because his mother was supporting Sylvia and not him. His mom would actually sit in the courtroom with Sylvia and her family during the divorce proceedings instead of him. So that really upset him. His buddy said that he should just come out there to Iowa and hang out with him. And he said that he'd probably plan on that. In November, he paid off his Santa suit and picked it up. And on the 13th of November, he bought his 5th gun. He also bought an air compressor, a 50-foot hose, and a tank of high-octane fuel. On December 18th, the divorce was finalized. He let her keep the engagement ring and agreed to pay her $10,000. The next day, he went and booked a round-trip ticket to Iowa for Christmas Day, and then he would return 2 weeks later. He also rented a car, a Dodge Caliber, from Budget Car Rentals, and then rented a RAV4 from Rent-A-Wreck. In the RAV4, he loaded it with maps of southwestern United States, along with food, clothing, a laptop, and a desktop, and a full tank of gas. Like an actual tank of gas along with the car gas. On Christmas Eve, he showed up at Sylvia's parents' house at around 11:30 that night. He rang the doorbell. On the other side of the door was 8-year-old Katrina Yusufpolsky. I hope I said that right. She looked out the window and was excited to see Santa at the door carrying a present. She was Sylvia's niece. She flung open the door to give Santa a big hug, but Pardo fired a gun instead, hitting her in the face. He stepped into the home and started shooting. The Ortega party had around 25 guests, ranging from children to grandparents. The adults were sitting around talking and playing some Texas Hold'em at the dinner table, and the kids were in the back room playing video games. Charles Ortega yelled, "It's Bruce," and then he was shot. The guests started to scatter as he is shooting at them. Some people, like Sylvia, hid under the dining room table, but this just gave him the opportunity to shoot those people execution style. When he was done shooting, he unwrapped the present he was carrying around. Inside was a homemade compressor that he made into a makeshift flamethrower. And he was just shooting out the jet fuel all over the house, trying to wet it down before lighting it on fire. Well, he was spraying it around the house and on people, and unfortunately, the fuel caught fire from one of the fireplaces. And then the house was quickly engulfed in flames. Flames licked up to the night sky about 40 to 50 feet over the house. It took firefighters, I think there was 80 firefighters, and it took them about an hour and a half just to put out the fire. Pardo was nowhere to be found. He escaped. He changed into street clothing and drove off with the Caliber. The flames were so hot, though, that the Santa suit partially melted to his arm, and he had a lot of third-degree burns on his body. His plan to flee to Iowa were ruined. He knew that he needed medical treatment and just gave up, I think, because they found him dead the next day on his brother's couch. He had a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. They also found $17,000 cling wrapped to his legs. The bomb squad was called to remove the Santa suit from one of the cars. He actually booby-trapped it, and they used a robot to extract it from the car, which made the whole car blow up. And apparently he wanted to kill his own mom since she sided with Sylvia during the divorce, but she escaped unscathed by any of it. It's really sad because at least 13 children were orphaned during this massacre. 2 other children lost only one parent. But that's not an upside. The victims were Sylvia, 43. This was Pardo's ex-wife, and he shot her. Alicia Ortega, 70. This is Sylvia's mom, who was shot. Joseph Ortega, he was 79, and this is Sylvia's dad. He was shot. Charles Ortega, he was 50. This is Sylvia's brother, who died from a combination of the smoke inhalation and gunshot wounds. This is the guy that yelled, "It's Bruce." Sherry Ortega, who is Charles's wife, she died of smoke inhalation and from the gunshot wound. James Ortega, 52, which was Sylvia's brother, who was killed also by smoke and gunshot wound. Teresa Ortega, which is James's wife, who died from smoke and a gunshot wound. Alicia Ortiz, which is Sylvia's sister, who died from a combination of the gunshot wound and smoke. And lastly, there was Michael Ortiz, who was Alicia's son. He was upstairs by himself playing on the computer, and he died from the fire. He couldn't escape. Luckily, Katrina, who was shot in the face, was swept up by her mother, Letitia, who ran to the next door neighbor's house to call the police and get help for her daughter. Luckily, Katrina turned her face right at the time that he shot, and the bullet went through her cheek and hit her jaw. So it didn't it was scarring, but it was not fatal. Besides Katrina, there was a 16-year-old girl that was shot, but she survived too. There was a woman that jumped from the second-story window, and she broke her ankle, but she survived. Michael was the only teen that was killed. Letitia lost both of her parents and all her siblings that night, but she was able to save her daughter. She was quoted to say, "Everywhere you turn, there are memories of what we used to have, and then memories of that night. You can't escape it. Christmas will always be there, and we will continue to celebrate it." Those are really strong words coming from somebody that lost so much on that night. I personally, I don't know if I could ever look at Christmas the same way again. It feels like because of Pardo's actions, the family was wiped out. The Ortegas, 4 of their children, 2 daughters-in-law, and a teenager all died because of this man. Once again, mental illness ruins a family. I would like to think that things would have been different if they treated his mentality. At least I'd like to think so. So they didn't have many pictures, and the pictures that I found were small. So hopefully, this will turn out nice. Trying to do a montage for these people. So, well, It's one more week until Christmas. I'll be releasing a video on that day, on Christmas Day. It's going to be closing out the year with one last Christmas true crime. Then next year, I'll go back to my normal random picks. I have a bunch of old and new stories lined up. If you like this, please subscribe and check out this whole video. You might find an Easter egg, a Christmas Easter egg, somewhere in it. Have a great week. Take care of yourself and others. Love you all.